Good morning. My name is Dr. Jesse Bolinger, and I want to welcome you to Service as a Path to Success. Today, we're going to talk about how nonprofit organizations can engage individuals with disabilities and special needs in voluntary service, but equally important, how individuals with disabilities and special needs can become involved and seek out volunteer opportunities in their community and even around the world. Currently, I'm serving as an AmeriCorps Vista member with Decatur County Development Corporation through a partnership with Volunteer Iowa. Prior to beginning my service, and after and during, in some cases, several career moves and working in a couple of different industries, I've been able to complete education that's allowed me to be of great service to others. I began my higher education career with a bachelor's degree in communication at Graceland University, graduating in 2007. Immediately following graduation at Graceland, I enrolled in the Masters of Nonprofit Management program at Regis University in Denver, Colorado. Then in 2014, I graduated with a PhD in Public Service Leadership from Capella University of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just a little bit about me. I am legally blind. That's one of the reasons I am so interested in the topic of engaging individuals with disabilities. My legal blindness is a direct result of hydrocephalus, and I did grow up in rural Iowa. I was born and raised in Creston, Iowa. So my year of service is going to be comprised of several projects as an AmeriCorps Vista member. These projects are going to include a upper elementary and middle school career education and kind of career readiness program where we're going to place speakers in classrooms in grades 4 through 8 in the 3 elementary and middle schools in Decatur County, so kids can begin to learn about what careers are available here in the county. And the hope is that this will help them not only choose a career at a younger age, as research shows that the younger a child learns about a career and is interested in it, the more likely they are to succeed, but hopefully encourage them to someday come and live and work in Decatur County. Then at the high school level, we're going to expand on the idea that we want students to either stay or return to Decatur County. And we're going to do that through a high school internship program where students will be able to spend time in local businesses learning hands-on about careers that they're interested in that are available here. We also are going to be engaging residents of Decatur County in financial literacy so they can learn more about finance and be able to be more informed and productive consumers. Finally, we'll be doing volunteer management training with various agencies and organizations in the county. In addition, there are small projects such as this video that are being done as well. When we think about nonprofit service and service to the community, there are a number of benefits to the individual, to the volunteer, and a lot of these apply to any volunteer, not just somebody with a disability. And the first, and the one that I think is possibly the most important, is physical. The physical benefits of voluntary service not only help that individual be up and moving, and this can improve health, but it also allows them to be in environments that they may not otherwise be in. The physical benefits of volunteer service have been shown to have great health benefits, and in some cases can reduce conditions such as heart disease, lower blood pressure, and in some cases may even treat some depression symptoms. These obviously are just examples and are not anything that I'm saying will work for anyone, but are definitely situations that we do know are beneficial on the physical front. Mentally and socially, volunteerism is not only stimulating, but in some cases, in some of the volunteers that I've talked to over the years, is almost a necessity. For an individual with a disability, it may be socially challenging, but voluntary service, depending on the community and the resources available, may in all realities be one of the few opportunities that an individual has to really engage with others. There are a lot of great community programs available that help folks with cognitive disorders engage, but yet in other communities these programs are very lacking. And so to be able to have this engagement, in any case, can be mentally and socially stimulating. On the mental side of things, for individuals that do have traditional mental health concerns, that maybe have depression and these sorts of disorders, while medication might be found to be helpful, I can point to even an example from late last week from a volunteer that I talked with, that's a student at the local university here at Graceland, and she said that when she came to campus, one of the first things she did was go to the local nursing home and do some volunteer work, because she found this mentally stimulating and beneficial to her. And so this is something that she does regularly. So there's economic benefits to volunteer service as well. It may not seem like it on the surface, but economically individuals can see personal economic growth, but also economic growth for communities depending on the kind of service they're doing. One of the ways that an individual with a disability can see economic impact for themselves is through the development of connections that may lead to future employment, whether it be with the agency that they serve with or through networking with other organizations. The quality of life benefits that exist, I think, are quite possibly one of the most important benefits of volunteer service. Individuals with disabilities at times can feel that they're forgotten, that they, are confined to certain requirements, to certain identities. And so to be a volunteer, to interact with the general public, to interact with staff and other volunteers, can greatly enhance their quality of life, how they view themselves, and even how they view the community around them outside of the organization. So one of the things I would say here for an individual with a disability, if you are looking to improve your life, if there's something that you need to work on, something that you desire, volunteer service can be a great way to do that. As a volunteer manager, what I would say about quality of life is work with your volunteers to really understand who they are and what their desires are, their hopes and dreams, and use those as guides as you move through the volunteer program. So one of the things that I find with individuals with disabilities, and I think anybody that has a disability will agree with me, is a lot of times we have skills that aren't utilized, and they aren't utilized for a number of reasons. And first and foremost, it's because employers, traditional employers, or in some cases even volunteer managers, see the disability and not the person. I recently went to a conference in Philadelphia, and we talked about person-centered language, and that is, we'd rather say a person with a disability instead of, you know, disabled person. You're hearing the word people first, so people with disabilities instead of disabled person. So we're looked upon in many cases as not having skills, and in many cases that simply isn't the truth. I can point to a number of examples where individuals with disabilities have obtained master's degrees, PhDs, you know, and have these skills, but for whatever reason maybe aren't fully integrated into the workforce, and that may be, that may be one of the reasons is the way the employer perceives that. So underutilized skills are really, really important to know as a volunteer, so you can talk to your volunteer manager. Volunteer managers, be sure to have really strong conversations with your volunteer about what their skills are, and all of their skills, not just maybe the ones that you're looking for. Unknown talent. I think this is huge as a person with a disability, and that is not knowing that you can do something, not knowing that you have a skill or a desire for a skill. I'll give an example. I never would have imagined that I had a talent for writing. I mean, I've always written papers for school and different things, but as I've gotten older, to discover that I really do have a talent to write and convey ideas and make connections so that others can read my work has been a phenomenal way to express myself and in some cases help organizations. Willingness to serve. This may seem really, really obvious, but in some cases, organizations don't realize that there is an untapped pool of potential volunteers. So in this case, individuals with disabilities. Additionally, individuals with disabilities do not always know that the opportunities are there, so the willingness to serve may not be as strong as it could be. I think about volunteerism in general. Okay, I've always been involved in nonprofits. I've always been involved in volunteering. One of the volunteer roles that has always bothered me, because it's been, I guess, a barrier in some ways, is the my perceived inability to serve my country at a national level. I've always seen serving my country as you have to be in the military. You have to be able to, go to war, and we know that many conditions, you don't qualify. Obviously, I'm legally blind, so I can't be in the military. What I overlooked was the national service world, and that this, even though I'm serving in a community that I live in, is national service. I am serving my country. And one of the ways that I'm ensuring that there's a national impact is making sure that I'm communicating fairly regularly with other national service members, collaborating in some cases on projects, making sure that if I create something, I can share it with others to say, I did this, feel free to use it in your community, and doing the same. Hey, I'm having this problem. What are you working on that maybe I can utilize? And so utilizing those skills is important. New perspectives. Individuals with disabilities have different perspectives on life. The perspectives that individuals have, and we all have different perspectives, but those with disabilities are outstanding. They, many cases, have the ability to look at things differently because of oftentimes sensory differences. As somebody with visual challenges, I hear things differently. I pick up additional things in conversation. And so it's important to understand the the perspectives and the differences in perspectives of your volunteers. So when we talk about pathways, when we talk about how does somebody get involved, and this is more for the individuals with the disabilities, to find your volunteer opportunities. Okay, so we've got our local nonprofits. That's anything based in your community. It doesn't matter if it is tied to a larger national organization like your YMCA, your Red Cross. If they're based on your community, they're local, they're accessible, and that's where I want you to start. Okay, so second one's community and civic organizations. Okay, this is your Lions Club, your Rotary clubs. A lot of these organizations do have membership fees. Don't let that stop you. Okay, join these organizations and get as involved as you can. Help with the fundraising, help with the pancake suppers, help run, bingo with the 4th of July, whatever it may be. But more importantly, attend the meetings and engage, because this goes back to what I said earlier. Economically, making connections, making those in the organization aware of what your abilities are can have great economic impacts through future employment and potential other opportunities. Okay, virtual volunteerism. This might be one of my favorites, not just for individuals with disabilities, but for anybody. Virtual volunteering is great. If you have skills, if you have abilities, if you have technology that you use for a hobby, chances are it can be of benefit to another organization. In one of my past roles, I was the volunteer executive director of a nonprofit that I founded from the ground up, and we were exclusively ran by virtual volunteers. And one of these volunteers actually was outside of the U.S., and it was wonderful because I could send a file off at the end of the day, 3 or 4 o'clock Central Time, and she was located somewhere, in a part of the world that when we were sleeping, that was her work day, and so she'd get up and do some work on these files and send them off to us, and so it would help us be more engaged. So one of the last things I want to talk about is overcoming challenges, and one of the first places as an individual with a disability that I can point to myself, how I've really overcome a lot of my challenges, is family and friends. This may seem obvious, but I want to point it out because your close family, they're always going to be there. They're going to be helpful in finding resources and helping you be a strong self-advocate, okay? For nonprofit managers, keep this in mind. If a volunteer comes in and they have a family member with them, be sure to engage with that family member as well, and ask them questions and get their feedback as well. Same with friends. Your personal network, okay, these are your church friends, your Rotary Club members, your folks that you maybe went to high school with that you aren't tied to as closely, that you maybe doesn't fit into your friend circle, but folks that you can still reach out to. Okay, so we're going to utilize them. And then your professional network. These are the individuals maybe from past jobs, past volunteer opportunities that we're going to talk to as we have issues that come up, as we need to overcome challenges. For volunteer managers, be sure to talk to your volunteers, your prospective volunteers, about these 3 groups so you can understand what their support system may be, and how they utilize that support system. And that's important to you as a manager, because if there are problems, if there is a challenge that maybe you're working with the volunteer, you can ask them who in your support system might be able to help you. Okay, so we're going to talk now about overcoming challenges using what you have. And a lot of times, and for those that know me, what we're going to talk about here is usually the basis of what I say should be used to recruit and retain volunteers. Um, but here we're going to talk about it in terms of overcoming your challenges. So the first one is going to be your education. This is your formal education, your informal education, grade school, college, whatever it may be, things that you've picked up through seminars, workshops. And once again, this is for both groups, individuals with disabilities and volunteer managers. Your education holds more than many people realize. I know when I attended Graceland University, I went through a lot of general education classes, and there were a lot of times that I said, I don't understand this. I don't see the value in this. And boy, was I wrong. When I went to Regis for my master's, I started to have students say, "Well, Jesse, how were you able to think about that, or why did you come up with that solution when we were talking about something totally unrelated?" And I said, "Well, I learned how to think differently because of my education." The second thing is going to be your work experience. Okay, what does your past work tell you? What have you learned? And I think this element is maybe a little more automatic because a lot of folks, like to work in the same industries, and if you do, then you know that things transfer from job to job. But we're also starting to learn that when you leave a job, there are transferable skills, and so both groups, individuals with disabilities, volunteer managers, think about that past work. And volunteer managers especially. If you're an executive director, but maybe you used to be a program coordinator with a youth program, and you've got a volunteer that maybe has an intellectual challenge, treat them like an adult, treat them like a human. But remember that working with an intellectual challenge might be like working with a 12 or 13-year-old kid, and so you might want to engage with them differently. Instead of sitting in an office talking to them, maybe you'd be better off to go to a gym and play some basketball while you talk, while you get to know them. Okay, so the last thing is mental health, and I talked about mental health and psychiatric medication earlier, but here, when we talk about mental health, I want to think about quality of life. I want to think about happiness. I want to think about those elements that drive individuals on a daily basis, and this is, once again, managers and volunteers alike. What do you do every day that keeps you going, that makes you happy, that if you miss this element or these set of elements, your day isn't going to quite be the same? Okay? So think about those three things. So, now, adapting positions. Very important that individuals with disabilities have what they need to be successful. Okay, I'm visually challenged. Anybody that knows me knows that I've made very concerted efforts to maintain my own technology. Okay, this has served me well. That doesn't work for everybody. It can be very costly. It can be very time consuming. But having the physical adaptations in place so you can be successful. Okay, so as a person with disability, make sure you're asking for what you need. Volunteer managers, be mindful of what might physically be lacking in your organization if you're going to start bringing in volunteers with disabilities. Okay, older buildings that don't have the requirement to be ADA accessible, what can you do to make those changes? If you live in a community that has a large number of individuals with a certain type of disability, what kind of physical adaptations can you make to make things easier for them? Okay, non-physical adaptations. What can be done on a non-physical sense? Okay, this would be special training for your volunteer managers regarding different types of disabilities. For individuals with disabilities, this might be setting up a special meeting between the volunteer manager, yourself, and maybe a caregiver or some sort of an advocate. Very important things, meaning different things for different people. So it is kind of difficult to talk about. But these are two things that I really want you to consider. I really have enjoyed you taking the time to view this presentation. Thank you so much. And I'm going to close with a video, an American Idol clip of a gal with a special need that has allowed herself to still do what she loves. And I think this is a great clip and really demonstrates what individuals with disabilities can achieve. Thank you so much. Feel free to comment. I'll respond to comments, and also feel free to contact me with questions, comments, and any other information that you might have or be interested in. Thank you so much.